I lived that 80s era, and Larry Bird was one of the greatest three-point shooters that's ever played this game. Percentages.
And Larry just walks on the court, like grabbed the ball and started jacking threes. Like,
I know going into that, I remember in the locker room, Robert said something that there's no way in hell I was going to win that three-point contest. So I knew right then I had to win it.
There are a lot of great three-point shooters in NBA history. Guys who could catch fire from deep, who could light up the scoreboard in an instant. But when you talk about swagger behind the three-point line, there's one story that stands above the rest, and it belongs to Larry Bird. See, most players celebrate after the ball goes in. They pump their fist, they raise their arms, they soak in the cheers. Larry, he was so confident, he didn't even bother waiting. He'd let it fly, turn his back, and start walking away before the shot even touched the net. And the crazy part, he was almost always right. Because Bird wasn't just a great three-point shooter, he was a prophet with a basketball. He'd call his shots like a pool shark, tell defenders exactly what he was about to do, and then drain it in their face. He didn't just want the points, he wanted the humiliation, the psychological edge that broke opponents long before the final buzzer. And there's one story in particular, one moment on the biggest stage that captured the essence of Bird's fearlessness. It wasn't just about making the shot, it was about declaring victory the second the ball left his hands. This wasn't just basketball. This was Bird announcing to the world, "I'm the best, and I'll prove it before the ball even leaves the air." And when it comes to three-point shooting swagger, nobody has a better story. Now, here's the thing about Larry Bird's three-point shooting. If you just look at the raw numbers, you might not think he belongs in the same conversation as the modern gunners. His career percentage from deep was 37.6%, and he averaged less than 2 makes a game. But here's the catch, the NBA in the 1980s wasn't built around the three-point line. Teams barely used it, and some nights, Bird wouldn't even take a three.
We never really worked on it.
Yeah.
I mean, we wouldn't even guard guys beyond the three-point line. We would stay way underneath, going there every pick. The corner shots and the one out at the top, really top of the key, they're the shots that I like to take.
But when he chose to, it was devastating. Bird wasn't a volume shooter. He was a timing shooter. He understood the rhythm of the game and knew exactly when to rip your heart out with a dagger from beyond the arc. By the mid-80s, he had already separated himself as one of the league's first true perimeter weapons. He finished in the top 5 in three-point percentage 3 different times, and when the NBA introduced the three-point contest in 1986, he made it his stage.
Delusional. Larry Bird could play in any era and do the same thing he did in our era. It couldn't handle him. Today's players could not handle him, period.
If you really want to understand how great Larry Bird was as a three-point shooter, you can't just look at his career average. You have to zoom in on his prime, specifically 1985 to 1989. In those 5 years, Bird shot 41.4% from deep. That's right in line with some of the best shooters of all time. Klay Thompson at 41.6%, JJ Redick at 41.5%, and even Stephen Curry at 42.8%. If Bird had maintained that clip across his career, he'd rank inside the top 20 all-time in three-point percentage. But here's what makes it even crazier. Bird's percentage wasn't just good, it was dominant for his era. He was over 40% better than the league average at the time. For context, Curry's historic shooting is about 30% above league average today. And in the NBA Finals, Bird actually edges Curry, hitting 42.2% compared to Curry's 39.5%. On the biggest stage, Bird delivered.
Well, back in 84, 85, and 86, the three-pointers were going down. But if you get in a situation where you got like a three-point lead with a minute to go, and you got the ball, and you're working it around, if you can hit a three-point shot at that time, 99% of the time you're going to win the game. And I realize that. Plus, on three-pointers, a big percentage of the time you're going to get the ball back. See, Kevin and Robert are great offensive rebounders, and DJ was a good rebounder, and Danny was scrappy. So when I took the shot, I felt if I did miss it, they was probably going to get it back.
Now, injuries slowed him down after 1989. From 1990 to 1992, an older Bird shot 37.2% from three, basically identical to Damian Lillard's career mark. But even including those later years, his stretch from 85 to 92 sits at 39.8%, nearly the same as Ray Allen, widely considered one of the greatest shooters ever. And this wasn't just about threes. Between 1984 and 1989, Bird put together a legendary 50-40-90 run, over 50% on twos, over 40% on threes, and over 90% at the free throw line. He's one of only two players ever, along with Steve Nash, to record multiple 50-40-90 seasons. Players marveled at how effortless it looked. The same smooth release, the same deadly accuracy. Bird didn't need to prove anything anymore. But those moments showed that his shot was more than a skill. It was a part of who he was. Even on the sidelines, Larry's jumper remained legendary. Even in retirement, Larry Bird never lost touch with the art of shooting. As head coach of the Indiana Pacers in the late 90s, he was often spotted stepping onto the court after practice, picking up a ball, and casually sinking threes as if he'd never left the game.
So we're shooting, and he's like walking out of the gym about to leave, but the ball rolls over to him. And I'm sure he probably haven't shot the ball in like, I don't know, years at this point. So he picks the ball up, bro, shoots cash from three too, like, and he's in slacks, he's in a button down, right. He got his loafers on, one shot, like, and it's just crazy the story of like him, like he could have that up and airballed or like, right. And then I would have just had this whole different like mindset about who he was, right. Like it was not like that.
Now, add the context. Bird didn't play in a spaced-out league, didn't get rules favoring offense, and wasn't freed up just to shoot. He carried every responsibility and still shot like that. That's why his three-point shooting wasn't just great for the 80s, it was revolutionary. What makes Larry Bird's three-point legacy even more fascinating is that at the time, a lot of people didn't even give him credit for it. In the 1980s, the three-point line was still treated like a gimmick. The media often dismissed it as a last-second desperation shot, not a true weapon. Even when Bird started knocking them down at elite rates, reporters and commentators focused more on his passing, rebounding, and overall scoring ability.
There's plenty of people that have shot more, and guess what? Made more at a higher percentage than Larry Bird from three. I'm not saying Larry Bird is not one of the greatest shooters ever. He's not one of the greatest three-point shooters ever.
But players from the 80s knew the truth. They guarded him. They game planned against him. And they saw firsthand how deadly he could be when he decided to step outside. Opponents respected the fact that Bird didn't just use the three-point line as a gimmick. He used it as a dagger.
But you know what? It's a tension that he's not going to want because a lot of former players, myself just as one, along with Dominique, talk about this guy who's a poor man, Jeff Hornacek, a guy that, why would he even say that? And when all he got, and when he's talking about that, you can't say that by watching game film. You have to talk to the players that lived it. I lived that 80s era, and Larry Bird was one of the greatest three-point shooters that's ever played this game. Percentages. It ain't about that. It's about hitting big shots, things that he couldn't do as a player without getting a pick set for him.
His peers often admitted that in clutch situations, there was no one scarier to leave open beyond the arc. To them, Bird wasn't just a shooter. He was one of the most dangerous three-point threats in the game.
Reddick don't know what the hell he's talking about. I'm going to say it, right?
I agree.
He don't know what the hell he's talking about. I'm like, what basketball was you watching? To say something as idiotic as that is ridiculous. The physicality that was a part of the league. Hey, look, When you can put your hand on a guy's hip and make him go a certain way, if you can put that elbow in his chest to slow him up, which we call slowing a guy up when you coming down the lane, so how many guys can deal with that type of pressure? And for J.J. Redick, who've played this game, I'm very disappointed that he has said something so stupid.
Critics rarely labeled Bird as one of the league's best from deep. Instead, they reserved that recognition for specialists who lived behind the arc. The irony is that Bird was more accurate than many of them. He just didn't take them in bulk. Some even went as far as to say Bird wasn't a real three-point shooter because he didn't rely on it as a primary weapon.
So let me ask you a question then. When I watch, let's say Steph Curry, for example.
Right.
When I watch Steph Curry off the ball in a playoff game.
Oh, he's great.
Getting grabbed and held by Marcus Smart. They're attached to him at all times.
Right.
Then when I watch Larry Bird come off a pin down and no one's within 5 feet of him and they're shooting the gap.
The funny thing, Bird himself admitted he never liked taking a ton of threes. He viewed it as a tool, something to pull out in big moments, especially late in close games, but not something to build an offense around. To him, it was just another part of his all-around arsenal.
Because we never shot a lot of threes, and I never practiced them. I mean, every once in a while I go out there with Danny Ainge and we'd shoot a few, but I didn't really know if I wanted to be in the three-point contest until a couple of my teammates told me I wouldn't win it anyway. So then I had to go out and prove to them that I could win the thing.
But when the league finally gave players a stage to showcase pure shooting, the three-point contest, Bird silenced every critic in the loudest way possible. By 1988, the NBA's three-point contest had already become a showcase for the league's best long-range shooters, but Larry Bird had turned it into his personal stage. He wasn't just another participant, he was the two-time defending champion. When he walked into the locker room before the contest in Chicago, the room was filled with the league's best shooters, guys who made a living off the three-point line. Bird scanned the room, looked around at all the competition, and broke the silence with one of the most iconic lines in basketball history. Which one of you is coming in second?
I walked in the locker room and the guys were sitting there and, they're nervous. Now, you got to understand that a lot of these guys came off the bench.
Right.
Then all of a sudden, they're going to go out there in front of 20,000 people, 40 sets of eyes on them, shooting a basketball.
Right.
That's got to be intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I liked that because I knew the pressure was on them more than me.
Mm-hmm.
I just looked there. I was really just teasing. I looked around and everybody was looking at me. I go, who's coming in second? And nobody said a word. I thought maybe they thought I was joking, but maybe they thought I was serious, but it was really a joke. Well, then I had to go out and win it.
He wasn't joking. He wasn't bluffing. He was telling everyone with absolute certainty that the contest was already over. It was a moment that summed up Bird's mix of confidence and intimidation. He didn't just want to win, he wanted his opponents to know they were already beaten.
So it's a whole different feeling when you get out there because when you're shooting that basketball and there's 20,000 people in the arena, there's 40,000 sets of eyes on you. It's a little different. And it's just you. So I knew they was under a lot of duress anyway, so I said it just to break the ice, but I didn't think it would ever leak out of there. But truthfully, I meant it. I mean, I knew I was probably going to win the contest.
As the contest unfolded, Bird backed up every word. He breezed through the early rounds, shooting with that same unorthodox but unshakable rhythm. It all came down to the final rack. Bird needed to sink the last few shots to secure the win. By the time he got to the corner, the scoreboard told the story. He was tied, and only the money ball would seal the victory. Bird caught it, rose up, and as the ball left his hand, he raised his index finger in the air. The shot hadn't even landed yet, but Bird already knew it was good. The crowd erupted as the ball swished through, giving him his third straight three-point contest title.
The last one was when you had the finger up. You knew that?
For the money.
Were you counting? You knew exactly how many points you had in there.
No, I knew the crowd.
Okay.
I didn't know if I really tied or won it, but I wonder if that thing popped out. But
you'd have done this.
I missed a lot of shots in that round, and I really didn't care what the score was going into. I just knew I had to make shots.
17-15.
Chicago Stadium.
That finger in the air moment became an instant piece of basketball folklore. It wasn't just about hitting the shot, it was about the audacity to celebrate before the ball even dropped. Bird didn't just win, he humiliated the idea of losing. He proved that his confidence wasn't arrogance, it was certainty, built on years of making the biggest shots under the brightest lights.
Oh, I was teasing these guys a lot. I told the check had my name on the last couple of weeks, but it was a lot of fun. You get pumped up for something like this. I'm really surprised I did as well as I did.
And you won 3 in a row, didn't you?
You won three in a row. Yeah, three in a row.
It wasn't just another trophy for Larry Bird. It was the defining snapshot of his three-point legacy. The trash talk, the pressure, the swagger, and the ability to deliver when everything was on the line. The contest ended exactly the way he said it would, the moment he walked into the locker room. Everyone else was playing for second. When it came to the court, Larry had hit a handful of big-time threes, but few were as jaw-dropping as his one-footed three-pointer to beat the Phoenix Suns in 1983. The Celtics trailed late, and Boston had one last possession to tie or win the game. Most players in that situation would have played it safe, gone for overtime, and looked for the higher percentage too. But Larry, he walked straight to the Celtics huddle, looking at Coach Casey Jones, and said he wasn't going for the tie. He was going for the win.
So he's very upset with that, so I diagrammed the play. He says, heck with the play, Case. Give me the ball and tell all the rest of the guys to get out of the way. I said, shut up, Larry. I'm the coach here. Okay.
And he didn't stop there. Before the inbound, Bird turned to the Phoenix bench and told them exactly what he was about to do. Hit a three to end it. Imagine that. Down 2, no margin for error, and he's calling the most difficult shot in basketball.
And then true to his word, in Phoenix, he goes down before the ball is thrown in, and he's standing right in front of the Phoenix bench, and he looks at all the guys on the bench and says, I'm getting the ball, I'm going to put it in the hoop. And he says, watch my hand as I follow through. The ball is thrown into Kevin. Kevin gets to Larry. Larry fires it up, puts a hand in the air as he continues on to the dressing room. Now that's what you call arrogance.
When the ball came in, Phoenix defended him perfectly. Bird was off balance, fading and forced onto one foot, but he still let it fly from deep as the buzzer sounded. For anyone else, it would have been a desperation heave. For Bird, it was destiny. The shot swished clean through. The arena was silent, and the Suns walked off stunned, knowing he had told them in advance and still did it.
Larry says, I'm going to bust off the play, and I'm just going to come out, and I'm going to shoot a 3. And I'm like, we're down 2. I'm like, no, don't do that. I'm like, let's shoot a 2, please. Go to the hole, try to get fouled. Let's just get into overtime, see if we can't win this game. And Larry says, no, I'm just going to bust a 3 on him. And I'm like, oh, my gosh. So he tells the Phoenix bench, he tells the coaches, yeah, I'm just fixing to bust a 3 on you guys and just go home. I'm tired of this. And he gets the ball, jumps out, busts the play, comes out, gets the ball at the slot, shoots the ball. As the ball's in the air, he kind of turns towards the Phoenix bench and yells, told you so, and he's off running to the locker room.
That play summed up everything about Bird's legend. It wasn't just the skill to hit impossible shots. It was the audacity to announce them before they happened. And when Larry Bird called his shot, you knew how the story was going to end. What makes Larry Bird's clutch legend even more fascinating is that his one-footed, leaning three-pointer against Phoenix in 1983 wasn't just a one-time miracle. 4 years later in 1987, he did it again, this time against the Washington Bullets. With the Celtics locked in another tight battle, Bird found himself in almost the exact same situation. Game on the line, defense scrambling, and the ball in his hands. Just like before, he drifted, lifted off one foot, and launched a 3 that most players wouldn't even consider taking. And just like before, it splashed through the net, ripping the heart out of another opponent.
So here we go. Danny Ainge to inbounds for the Celtics, trailing by 1, 2 seconds left. Into Bird, he fires. Yes! And the Celtics win! Unbelievable! Larry Bird at the
It wasn't just the shot itself that made these moments legendary. It was the fact that Bird called his shot and thrived under pressure, turning the most difficult, improbable looks into game winners. By repeating the feat, he proved that his Phoenix heroics weren't luck. They were the product of a shooter so confident, so skilled, and so fearless that no situation felt impossible. Larry Bird's story from deep has never been about sheer volume. It's always been about impact. Unlike today's stars who build their games around the three, Bird saw it as a tool, a weapon he could unleash when the moment called for it. And when those moments arrived, he turned the arc into a stage for some of his most unforgettable feats. The one-footed game winner against Phoenix, the impossible leaner to Barry Washington, the legendary three-point contest where he walked in, called his shot, and walked out the undisputed king. Each moment wasn't just about scoring, it was about control, about imposing his will when everything was on the line. What truly separates Bird's three-point legacy is that it wasn't defined by numbers or attempts. It was defined by belief. He told the bench what he was about to do before doing it. He raised a finger in the air before the final shot even dropped. He spoke with a confidence that rattled opponents before the ball even left his hands. And though critics refused to rank him with the so-called specialists of his era, his peers never doubted, because they saw the truth up close. For Larry Bird, the three-pointer wasn't just another shot. It was a dagger, a declaration, and often the final word. Every time he rose up from beyond the arc, he wasn't just scoring, he was making a statement. And more often than not, that statement rang loud and clear. Game over.